Welcome to another episode of Show and Tell Books. I'm Amber,
And I'm Chantel.
and today we're talking about the Spanish love deception and the American roommate experiment. Oh, you have both books. Did you actually
I
buy
do.
both?
No, I stole them from my coworker back
Okay.
when I was still working. So I need to give them back to her. But that is actually why I finished them, is because I had the physical books and I knew I had to give them back.
Spanish love deception, I think, is a bit of a love to hate for us, as in it's a ripoff of the hating game, just a bit. Catalina is one of the most annoying female main characters we've ever read. I feel like it's inconsistent in
Yes.
what you're
Yes. Thank you.
expecting in her character versus what we see. I think she plays the victim way too much for stupid instances
Oh,
where it's like you're not the victim in this situation, you're just wanting a pity party.
but not just that, she plays the victim in situations that she herself caused.
Right.
So, like, the entire first third of the book is her freaking out because she has to bring a date to this wedding because her ex is going to be there and she wants to show that everyone she's happy. And I'm like, so the person who actually volunteered to go with you, you shot him down and called him like some really mean names as a coworker. That's not professional. And if you're the epitome of professional and you're the only female lead on your team, you got there for a reason because you are capable of being professional. And yet she is so not. Anyway,
Yeah. I I feel like the great deception is the fact that the Spanish love deception won the 2021 Goodreads Award and was like just blown up, and everyone says it's such a great book and everybody recommends it. And I'm like, no, like there are so many parts of it that are problematic or troubling that you're like, why are we holding this up yet again as a great example of how a woman should behave in the workplace or in her personal life?
and I mean, I did this, right? If you liked it the first time, read it again. Because now that I read it again, I saw way more of the holes that should not have been there in the first place. Is it cute? Sure. But it's not fantastic.
Yeah.
Whereas I will say I really enjoyed number two. I think number two is way better than number one.
I agree. I think the American Roommate Experiment is a vast improvement, and I think Elaine Armas's writing style is improving, her ability to plot a book and write characters that are engaging is improving in this one, but there were still some issues for me.
I read this all last night.
I'm so
All
impressed
of
when
it.
you texted me at 3 in the morning and was like, it was actually cute. I was like, she managed to read that in one sitting. Like, how
I
did she
started
do
it.
that?
I think I started it at about 11. Yeah, 10. And it was 1 o'clock my time. So let's be clear here. Well, I didn't stay up late. I didn't stay up that late.
It took a long time for me to get invested in this book. I think almost the first 200 pages I slogged through and I struggled to enjoy.
That's because, first of all, Rosie is a psychopath and
Yeah,
100% a stalker. This is a prime example. If you take the chemistry out of any relationship, you will be surprised at how much someone comes across as a stalker. Granted, she was even a stalker prior to the romance. She like stalked him on Instagram every single day. She's filled with psycho.
for
Um,
months. So Rosie is Catalina's best friend. They work together at their tech company. And Catalina mentioned her cousin Lucas, the professional
the first
surfer, like
book,
once in
one
the
time.
first book. And Rosie went full stalker level on him on all of his socials, like knew his dog's name, knew everything about him that was on the internet. So she quits her job at Intech and because she sold a romance novel and felt like she was going to be successful after selling her first romance novel to a
She also
publisher
got a contract for a second.
and got a contract for a second, but she didn't tell her family. And then to make matters worse, her apartment ceiling collapses on her while Catalina is on her honeymoon. So she's like, well, I have a spare key to her apartment. I'll just go crash there without knowing that Lucas had been promised the apartment. So you get the instant forced proximity trope. What I did love is this version of fake dating where I feel like oh, I need a date for an event, like you see in the first one, has been done a
So
hundred
many
times.
times.
So,
Mhm.
so many times. This one is, well, we'll kind of fake date so you get inspiration for your second book because you have writer's block. But Lucas is such like a
He's
sweetheart.
so cute.
He was the redeeming character
Yes.
in this storyline for me because Catalina's appearances in the American Roommate Experiment make me think she's like the worst friend in the world. Aaron like doesn't actually say anything, he just
Okay,
makes
but for the
faces.
record, Aaron doesn't do anything in like the first one either. He's more of a cardboard cutout used to prop her along. And yeah, they banter and they bicker, but he's not really a 3D character. But so I did like that Elena Armas made Lucas actually a person. I think it helps because Spanish Love Deception is written only from Catalina's point of view, whereas the American Roommate Experiment is written from both Lucas and Rosie's point of view. So I think the dual POV helped a lot more make the story rounded and also cut back on the annoyingness of the characters because it switched every other ish chapter. So you
Yeah.
didn't hate them as much.
My recollection of the Spanish love deception is that there were very clear signs on Aaron's part that he was interested in Catalina.
Yes,
Like,
yes, from the get
hi,
go.
hello, pay
Zuzu.
attention to me. I want to date you. Like, please look my way. And she was totally
Yes.
oblivious.
And granted, this is very much a popular trope in book genres, especially romance books, where it's like an unrequited love for tons of years, right? We think of like love hypothesis. You've got it in Spanish love deception. He's been obsessed with her for like 3 years since he first started at the journal. And there's a line right at the end of the book where Catalina's like, you have basically loved me then since the beginning. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, why didn't you say anything? And he's like, well, because you hated me. And she's like, well, why didn't you then quit or like do anything about it? And he's like, because I got to the point where I just wanted any part I could have with you, even if it was you hating me. I was like, well, in theory, that sounds kind of cute. I'm also like, if someone told me that in real life, I'd kind of be like, I think you might need therapy. Not in like a
Right?
mean way, not in anything, but in a like, you need to like have enough self respect to also walk away because you shouldn't be dealing with an abusive relationship simply because you love someone. One thing I love is even just how it starts, right? Like she's in bed because her ceiling has just collapsed and someone sounds like they're breaking in. So she calls the cops. Um, and they do the whole, oh, Catalina said I could stay here. Oh, I'm staying here. That whole thing, right? And so he didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. And so he left. He had nowhere else to stay. He literally like parks himself at a like 24-hour diner and sleeps there because he didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. How often does that happen? Never. So I really, yeah, from the get go, Lucas, I really like.
Yeah. I thought he was just a quality individual and like you can see he cares about people and his interactions with random other characters throughout the book, right? Like the neighbor across the way has dementia, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a quality individual who knows how to connect with people and have a deeper relationship with them than just saying hello. I did think it was weird that there was this subplot of her relationship with her brother, Ollie.
It
Like,
was,
it just felt
especially,
unnecessary and ill
it didn't add
written.
anything. I mean, I guess it added an element of danger to their relationship when they're running away from his boss. But I'm just like, there should be a lot more emotional trauma or emotional baggage that comes with something like that. And it never got addressed. The fact that her mom left when they were kids is mentioned
Yeah.
like in 2 seconds and is never talked about again ever. The fact that because of that, I'm sure she then mothered her brother and dad, that's never addressed.
Well, I feel like
So
it's talked about
yeah,
in the first part of the book where she's like explaining why she didn't tell them she quit her tech job and what she felt like she had to constantly check in and on Ollie, but as soon as Lucas shows up, it's not talked about anymore. And that's where I feel like you can tell she's a young author who's still developing her writing and her skill set because it could have added more depth to the story overall for it to be carried throughout. And there was so much potential for them to grow together as a couple or her as an individual if it was addressed instead of just being forgotten and pushed off to the wayside. Personally, I think the bathroom scene totally unnecessary and like gross and just weird, right? Like there other authors do it. Megan Quinn's done it. It's like you said, part of kind of smut book talk
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
literature and almost expected. But for the way that Lucas and Rosie's relationship and development, it just felt completely off and very like
Hormonal.
hormonal. Yeah. It was interesting too because there were such quality, like cute scenes too, like the restaurant scene where he kind of reenacted what it would have been like for them to meet at Catalina and Aaron's
That
wedding.
was
And
so cute. The
so
amount of
cute,
thought he put into it, literally
right?
recreating it, baking the cake that was at their wedding. Like,
Just,
man.
just so thoughtful and sweet. And it's like it degrades that moment to throw in some of these more intimate scenes because they didn't fit that vibe, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it's another instance of you kind of see Lucas has that in him, but it's like you're gonna tell me the man who did all of that effort is the same one who would just
Okay. In his defense, though, Rosie was horny.
she was thirsty. She was horny.
Yes.
It just
Yes. Because again, like Lucas is like, we can't do this right now. Like multiple times throughout the book. And she was like, it's fine. Hello. They're about to have sex and her brother's literally in the same room, sleeping on the couch because they're staying in a studio apartment. And I was like, hun, I know you like want to sleep with him, but
I also just didn't like how they intentionally hid everything from Catalina. Like they knew that Catalina wouldn't approve of their relationship, and so both Lucas and Rosie decide to lie to her and omit the truth. And granted, like Catalina's super annoying, so I can kind of see why, but it just felt disingenuous again because this is supposed to be Rosie's closest friend, only friend is what it kind of seems like. So Rosie as a character I thought was better than Catalina, but not by much.
not by much. Yeah.
It reads more like a woman in crisis whose life is completely falling apart and she's not really doing anything to help herself. It because Lucas shows up on her doorstep, things start to magically fall in place for her and get better instead of her taking charge and making it better herself, which I thought was disappointing.
I don't think I will reread Spanish Love Deception. I actually might not even read The American Roommate Experiment. I think they're both cute, but they're not books that I would like super recommend um, because there's a lot of flaws.
I don't know that I will go and pick up her third book if there's a third book, but I hope that she does continue to write and develop, and the people who love her style will probably continue to love it.
It's a good way to be diplomatic
Right.
on the ending.
I would say like it takes a lot of gumption is maybe the right word. Like it takes a lot of faith and perseverance and character to write a book and put it out in the world. Like I've seen some authors talk about how they work on these books for months or years in some cases. And as a reader, I read it in one day or in the case of these books in a couple of months because I struggled to read it.
It took a while.
Um, but I just consume it. I don't have to produce it. And so even though I kind of bashed both of these books pretty harshly, like I still want to give her credit for being brave enough to put them out in the world.
Absolutely. Overall, like the stories are well done. Like they're cute, and that is exactly what reading should do is take you out of your world for a little bit and plop you into this one, right? I did feel like I was watching a movie while I was reading them. And it takes a lot to do the work to write a novel, right? The marketing team and all of that, but also like to open yourself up to the criticism that comes with actually publishing a book. Um, so definitely kudos.
Well, thank you for watching this episode. Please like and subscribe. Maybe watch another one. Drop it in the comments if you have another book you want to recommend for us to read and talk about because we're always adding to our endless TBR. I don't know what to say.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.